Hi everybody, and welcome to Ziggurat Retro Replay. I'm Raven.
And I'm Cole.
And today we are playing Rendering Ranger R2.
Ooh!
I'm so excited about this game. It is one of our gems coming from our big roster of games that we have, and it's one of those that not very many people know about, and kind of rightfully so. We'll go into the history of it in a little bit, but since this is our first episode, I kind of want to explain what these videos are real quick and just what to expect. We are planning on doing this with a bunch of our titles in the Ziggurat catalog, so that way we can talk about retro titles, we can talk about titles going forward, we can talk about a bunch of stuff, because really what we're here to do is celebrate the legacy of video games.
And
really.
Selfishly, we just really want to share our excitement for video games with you.
100%. So what you can expect from these videos is we want to talk about new games that are coming out in our catalog. We're going to talk about the old games that they're based on. We're going to talk about games around them that influence them. Like, really what we want to do is set the context for these amazing retro games and how they're moving forward in the video game space. So today we are talking about Rendering Ranger R2. So here are the facts. Here's the kind of bullet list of facts that we've got. It was originally developed by Rainbow Arts, originally published by Virgin Interactive. It is a wonderful mix of both an arcade shooter and also a shmup, which is my favorite word on the planet. Shmup, 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 shmup. And Cole, for those that don't know, what does that stand for?
Shoot 'em up.
Nice.
So, think of the energy of a Metal Slug or a Contra.
Heck yeah. That is actually, Contra is one of the games that this one is compared to a lot. So,
but also don't get it twisted. There's a lot of people make the comparison between Contra and Rendering Ranger a lot because of the 8-directional shooting you can do, the running from side to side, but I think it's a disservice a little bit to both games because they both are doing very different things and both can be a little buck wild. So it's not a one-to-one correlation.
Main trait of Rendering Ranger R2, buck wild.
Yes.
So if we're kind of looking backwards at the retro title, so this is this almost kind of legendary title. And the reason why that is the case is because it was only actually published in Japan on the Super Famicom. And so it has this kind of legendary aura to it for a couple different reasons. One, it has that kind of scarcity because it was published only in Japan, but also because it was published and created basically by the same person who did the Turrican series. Manfred Trenz is the person.
The legend. The man
The
himself.
legend, Manfred Trenz. Yeah, totally. I put in my notes here, he is, quote, this is a professional term, he is, quote, an absolute baller, end quote.
I love that. With talking with Audie, who's our current producer on bringing Rendering Ranger to limited run in the Carbon engine, Manfred Trenz apparently is the wizard in how he designed and programmed Rendering Ranger.
As well as Turrican.
Correct, but the way he programmed Rendering Ranger is top tier, where Audie is just I don't even know. The way he went through and programmed it, he's no one does this. No. This is too difficult. No one does this, but Manfred did. And so I think it's important. Manfred did. He's the man. No, but I think it's important with games and giving games context or anything, right? I wish we knew more designer names. We know, Miyamoto or Sakurai, but Trenz is also important for what he's brought to the table.
Definitely. And so that, in terms of this legendariness, this baller status that we have granted the Manfred, yes, capital T. He was absolutely known for pushing the absolute boundaries out of the games that he developed. So both with Turrican and with Rendering Ranger. And so for context, you'll hear that word a lot. For context, Turrican was developed or was published in 1990, and then Rendering Ranger came out in 1995. But he was totally known for pushing the boundaries with things like rendered graphics. And in Rendering Ranger, for example, there's like enemies that you fight that are 3 screens high, right? Which is just like so epic. And if you're playing this, that I imagine at that time frame would have been so freaking cool, right? Can you think of anything that kind of like builds on that?
I think
That like enemy style?
when I think of Rendering Ranger, I defaultly think of parallax scrolling because there's usually multiple layers behind the play field and often in front of the player as well. And then you have the CGI graphics, so you have that faux 3D style that a lot of people associate with Donkey Kong Country, which is a really interesting parallel as well because Rare made this Donkey Kong Country world universe where it's a lot of organic shapes, and then you have Rendering Ranger come in and it's a lot of alien ships and flying metal skulls. And so with that, I think the legibility is just different. There's a crispness because it is a metallic thing flying at this Rendering Ranger.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
And then there's also enemies that utilize the Mode 7 technology within the Super Nintendo. So you have
what does
bosses.
That mean?
So
explain that to me.
So Mode 7 is I think like what people think about a lot is probably like F-Zero as well, but it's when background layers or enemies can rotate and scale, and there's like this 3-dimensionality to them, but also like the pixels get larger. So in Rendering Ranger, there is an enemy that is a giant robot in space when you are in one of the R-type style levels flying your spaceship, and the enemy, he's the worst because he's spinning around and bobbing and weaving, and then he also just comes straight at you. It's a la throwing the Foot Clan at...
Yep, that's what I was gonna reference.
Exactly.
I love that. That's all you needed to say.
Yeah.
But I do have to say that all of this kind of progression, this like really cool stuff that was put into this game in Rendering Ranger R2 is a little bit of its downfall. Downfall is not the right word, but it's the reason why people in North America or Europe, for example, it's the reason why we haven't really heard about this game, because so Turrican came out, it was this big hit, right? And so immediately they went into starting to create Rendering Ranger. And time went on, and that's in the middle of that development actually is when Donkey Kong Country came out. So they were like, we have to use these rendered graphics because, you know, we want to. This would really aid this game. And so because of the addition of something that big, like that's gonna really mess up the dev cycle, right? Because of something that big, and the fact that Manfred Trenz is that person to really want to push the systems forward, it actually postponed the launch to the point where only publishers in Japan were wanting to publish the game. So this game was originally slated to be published worldwide. If you've heard of the name Targa, that's where that comes from. It was called Rendering Ranger because they wanted to allude to like, this has rendered graphics in it. So similar to that, kind of trying to catch the SEO of Donkey Kong Country, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And so
hit those buzzwords.
Totally. And so they had that title, and it was going to be released as Targa, which was the original name that they had for the game. Everywhere else. So you'll see that usually they're kind of named together. That's why, because it's the same game, but it had different intentions. The game though was written and it was published in English only, so that is something that's a little bit odd, even though it was in Japan only on the Super Famicom. On that note though, because it was published kind of on such a small scale, or at least just reserved to the Japan region, very few copies were actually published of this game. So we've seen on the internet anywhere from 5,000 copies to 10,000 copies, and so
the truth is probably somewhere in the middle of what actually hit
100%,
distribution. Yeah.
So that actually makes this game one of the most expensive retro games out there to purchase on the market.
And defaultly rarest.
It is a little bit of a shame to see kind of what happened with it, because it was incredibly fascinating and incredibly boundary breaking for what it was, but it just didn't get the audience that it could have. What is this game about, Cole?
I'm so glad you asked. It has one of the most gripping narratives I've ever experienced in my life, which is to say, you play as the Rendering Ranger.
Oh, love that.
Which is a special forces soldier who's called upon to save Earth from an alien invasion. And so, and that's it. That's pretty much the basics. But I also like to highlight that maybe the call came a little late, because the first level of the game, you have kind of this Red Dawn-esque parallax scrolling horizon, and it's just shrapnel and bent steel and broken buildings. So, like, I think you didn't answer the phone for a bit or something.
Or the call was coming from inside the house, you know?
Yeah, so oopsies. But Rendering Ranger, like, that's it. Like, save Earth. Which is very similar to, like, Turrican as well. It's just like,
but this is an era of video games where that's all you need. Like, there's a beauty to the simplicity.
Your princess is in another castle. Keep going, baby.
Except for in this case, your princess is just
your princess is Earth.
Yeah, that's
princess
true.
is Earth.
If you are interested in this game and have heard us wax poetic about the Manfred Trenz, the legend, the legend, the wonderful game that is Rendering Ranger, I would be remiss to not mention that we are publishing this game with limited run, and it is currently in pre-orders. So if you're watching this in time with its release, you can pick up a Super Nintendo version of this game with limited run up until September 4th. So if you're interested in something like that, it's right there for you, baby.
And in the future, we are also still partnering with Limited Run and their use of the Carbon engine to bring Rendering Ranger R2 to multiple modern consoles as well. So be on the lookout for that as well.
Maybe we'll even do an episode on the Carbon engine, because that alone is really freaking cool, and it's something that's really like helping retro games kind of be preserved, really. So thank you so much for watching today. We hope that you love Rendering Ranger as much as we do, and we hope that you come along with us on this ride for our Ziggurat Retro replays. We have a lot of games coming down the pipeline that we cannot wait to talk to you about, as well as bring some of our amazing archived games up into the forefront, so you can learn a little bit more about some historical games, some more games where your princess is Earth. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, my name is Raven.
And I'm Cole. And thank you all so much for hanging out with us.